All right, let's get started. We have a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight on both meetings, so let's get moving. It is what day is today? March 21st, 2019. This is the Operations Committee of the School District of the Upper Dublin School District, and I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Are there any announcements or communications?
Mr. Lester is not able to be with us this evening, so we have with us Mr. Matt Toner.
Welcome, Mr. Toner. All right, we have minutes from the February 21st meeting. If anyone has corrections, please get them to Brooke, and those will be on the agenda at the next legislative meeting. Let's dive right into the reports and recommendations, starting with radon testing results.
The radon testing was done at all the schools. Every classroom with ground contact was tested. All but 3 classrooms were under the 4 picocuries per liter. Jarretttown room 10, Thomas Fitzwater's room 7 and 22. We will be retesting those rooms during spring break. They suggested it could be a slight anomaly with something because the corresponding rooms didn't have high readings as well. So, sorry.
Okay, and are any questions or comments from the committee?
I just wanted to comment. It's none of the ratings were significantly high. They all, the ones that we're concerned about, exceeded the 4. Mm-hmm. But I remember when my entire neighborhood, when we tested, 20 was low in my neighborhood, and some people were 60, 70. So to see that it's as low as 5 for the high readings is a very good indication of. I think we're fortunate to have that because we really didn't know where it was going to be, which is why, there really was the need. But I think it's very good news, and we tested every classroom.
Every classroom was ground contact.
Right.
So second floor building rooms were not tested.
Correct.
Obviously.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And some non-classrooms like the Wilson room or the downstairs part of the Wilson room at Sandy Run, which was above, but since nobody's in there. Are we retesting that one, or we're going to?
We're just retesting the 3 where we have students employees in the room. The additional cost will be $475. I just wanted to let you know that. But we're also taking a look. Matt will be working with our HVAC to make sure that to check out
things working properly in those classrooms to make sure that the proper fan speed, all those things were done.
The pool had a slightly higher. Is that one of the locations?
Pool pump room. The pool pump room.
The pump in the basement.
Yes, that's correct.
Where everybody hangs out, right?
It's
nobody down. Yeah. Okay, so it was just the pool pump room.
Correct, and it really didn't need to be tested.
No.
But when you're doing that much testing, the canisters, there were a couple of locations.
But the pool itself that space was tested.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, so that room is listed as the pool filter room is at 4.7. When do we expect to have results from the retesting over spring break?
We're not sure, but when they're only turning around 3 rooms, I wouldn't think it'd be a couple of weeks maximum. We're hoping that by checking out the HVAC, their handlers, that everything will be resolved.
And if these 3 rooms show similar readings in the 5 range that they're showing now, do we intend to remediate with? Do we know what we'll do, or we're going to wait and find?
We'll wait and find out and talk with our consultant.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you. So we'll look forward to those next results. And that $475, we don't need to take action on that.
No.
Right. Okay. Professional engineering services for lead and copper.
Yep.
Sure. Professional engineering will complete all necessary paperwork for the Department of Environmental Protection to keep us in compliance. The paperwork required is above the scope of work for the operator that we currently hire. It's very complicated paperwork.
So, to clarify, so really what we're having them do is help us with regulatory paperwork. This isn't, a specific concern that we've just got discovered or something.
The concern is that we need to file this increased paperwork. When we hired the licensed operator to come in, DEP has increased the reporting that needs to be done. So we're hoping that this company, well, we're not hoping, we're expecting them to get us through the initial paperwork, actually help us set up a template and understand what we need to report moving forward. And just for everyone's memory, it has to do with copper, and it's only at Fort Washington and the high school because the water supply is from Ambler.
Right. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. So we'll move this one forward to the legislative meeting.
Yes.
Next up, review of asbestos abatement bid results at Fort Washington.
Fort Washington asbestos abatement. Sargent Enterprises. We've used the company for 3 years, over 3 years. They just recently did some abatement for us at the Sandy Run Middle School, preparing for some of the handicap changes we need to make. They're the outdoor panels that are incorporated in the windows. Those need to be replaced. They will work with the contractor who's doing the window replacements over the next 2-year period to make sure that everything's done properly.
And can you remind us what was the original expectations for this pre-bid? What was the pre-bid estimate?
Well, we were anticipating that there might be a cost as much as $80,000 to $100,000. So obviously, this is quite favorable. We've worked with Sargent, as Matt said, over the last 3 years, consecutive years, but probably during my tenure here, we've worked with them 7 or 8 years doing removal of floor tile every year, and usually they are low bid. So because they're so significantly lower, trust me, we did some research to make sure that they were the lowest responsible bidder, and they have been deemed so by our consultant, Element Environmental.
Okay, comments or questions?
This will be on Monday's agenda.
Is the abatement happening during the summer? At what point in time is it being carried out?
Since these panels are... Go ahead.
The panels are part of the windows, the blank sections that don't have glass. And as they remove the aluminum frames and replace all those will be collected at the same time. But yes, over the summer, sorry.
Yeah.
Did the report indicate what contained the asbestos? Is it the panel material itself?
The panel itself, correct.
The outside, the inside insulation that's in between?
That part I don't know.
Caulk?
Yeah, I don't think the caulk, I don't know. That part I don't know.
So it's just the panels itself?
Yeah.
That's what we have on list.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move that one forward to the legislative meeting. Review of window air conditioner bid results.
I'll start. We opened these bids yesterday afternoon, hence they were added to the agenda a bit later than what we would like. Matt, do you want to make some comments? Okay.
The total bid price for the window installation project for Fort Washington, Jarretttown, and Thomas Fitzwater was $615,000. There were a couple alternates, which we are not going to go with any of the alternates. Hirschberg Mechanical was the low bidder in that project. You'll notice there's 3 alternates. You want me to go into that?
Yeah, at least, I mean, you can just mention them and tell us why you've decided not to take them.
Alternate number 1 was change the over to a Friedrich window AC unit at Fort Washington. That particular unit had Bluetooth. We didn't feel it was necessary to have Bluetooth. The second reason that we didn't select it, we want all the air conditioners to be the same. So if we have a problem with one in one room that's not being used, we can easily move it over to Thomas Fitzwater or Fort Washington to try and get the most we can out of this. It just seemed prudent. The reason for alternate 2 and 3, we were just looking to see what the price breakdown was per building, just so we had an idea that the actual cost.
Just what is the brand? Do we know the manufacturer? Is it specified somewhere? Or you can let us know Monday night.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can let you know.
And I assume they can be. Can they be? We spoke about the option of being able to be shut down on a particular. Is there a clock on them where it enables you to turn the unit off at a particular time? I'm just curious about that. Because one of the concerns is that they stay on much longer than they need to stay on. So I'm wondering if there's any controls built in to control that.
I'd like to speak to that. We'll be working with the elementary principals to develop parameters of when the air conditioning units are supposed to be on. We do have some classrooms where air conditioning is needed more often than other rooms because of students or staff with specific needs, but we will be developing an administrative procedure around the use of the machines.
Specifically, on the first alternate, that would permit you to control them remotely even because of their Bluetooth. But those would not fit into the other, and as Matt said, we really like the idea of having them being interchangeable. So I just want to talk a little bit about Hirschberg, although that's the name. They are the company that put in the bid and has the performance and surety. A lot of this work is electrical, and it's SNS Electric. And they've done work for us over at Thomas Fitzwater as well as Fort Washington. So we have experience with the electrical company that will be doing a great deal of the work.
Maybe this is old news, but did we ever utilize the air conditioners the window air conditioners at Maple Glen? Were we able to utilize any of them?
You repurpose them?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Wherever we can, absolutely.
Will they work with this system here we're putting?
There's. What do you mean? Will they work with this system?
I mean, could they be used prior to putting these window units in?
Well, currently they're already in place in other rooms. We don't have any window units in Maple Glen.
Mm-hmm. You took them all out. Now they're being utilized in the other schools.
Correct. Yes, wherever we can. We might be able to reuse those in perhaps Sandy Run, but what we really want to do with the new ones is have all new in each of the elementaries, again, just to make it easier to maintain and change out and just work with them. But I understand we have had some of the units are still good, and we've used those in Sandy Run.
Any other comments or questions?
Talking about Sandy Run, Matt, I'm hoping that when we demolish Sandy Run, if there are good working air conditioners in the annex, which I know there's quite a few, that we move them over to the main building, because it's going to be hot in the main building for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially with construction.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to sum up, we plan, or this will be moved forward for approval on Monday night, and it will be base bid of $615,000 to Hirschberg Mechanical.
Great. Everyone agrees to move that forward? Yeah. Okay. Next up, engineering services for the Sandy Run retaining wall design. Yes.
This will be a ratification, something that really the township needed as we were working on the design for Sandy Run related to the retaining wall for the artificial turf field. The work's already been done.
Comments or questions?
This, and just in case you haven't had a chance to see it, the lump sum was $4,550.
Stan?
Can we put a not to succeed clause in this?
It's already done.
It's already done?
Yeah, just it's a ratification.
Yeah. The scope of what they were doing, although we will see other work from Advantage. This was just a very limited scope that needed to be done immediately.
Part of the permitting process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you know if this engineering firm has worked with the township in the past?
I'm not sure that if Advantage Engineers has or not. I know that they've worked with Terraform, which is one of the engineers that was working on the property, Terry DeGroot. So.
Okay, so we'll move this ratification forward. Okay. And traffic engineering design authorization, engineering authorization.
There really are three different authorizations or contracts that we have here with McMahon. The first one is the large overriding contract to get the work accomplished, a traffic engineering design for Sandy Run Middle School. That work has also already begun. It's necessary for the proposed improvements on the final transportation impact study, preliminary conceptual design plan, and comments received from the township traffic engineer. In addition, there's also PennDOT has a lot of information and feedback. We also are currently, there was a meeting last week at McMahon as we look to move utility poles as we need to make changes to the roadway along Twining. So the first, the amount of the contract is $46,400. This should have been before the board earlier. But just as Mr. Robsky suggested on this particular one, the amount of the contract does not cover all time and materials. And oftentimes, McMahon or other engineers are required to go to meetings, so we have an additional charge. So instead of putting the motion on for Monday night to ratify $46,400, I would suggest approximately $53,000, another 10 to 15% more. The other two, much smaller amounts, but we'll see these as we move through the project, are extra work authorization forms. And the first one is, well, there's one for $4,500, and it specifically spells out this extra work authorization is for additional services to be provided as required by PennDOT HOP, Highway Occupancy Permit Review. And this one, the $4,500 one has to do with a temporary pedestrian detour route that's to be in place during construction. So I would suggest that I have a not to exceed on this of $5,175. And last, there is a third or the second EWA extra work authorization. I'm trying to find, oh, here it is. Again, it's extra work that's been noted by the PennDOT review letter that was dated March the 12th. They have some additional work PennDOT has requested, and McMahon will need to prepare right-of-way plans for this project in accordance with the PennDOT requirements. For right-of-way is the particular issue that they will be working on this $6,500, excuse me, additional EWA. And again, because of time and material, I'd like to put a not to exceed on this as $7,475.
All right, and just to clarify, for anyone looking at board docs, when Brenda said the first one, is the first one in that list of 46.4, but it's not actually the first attachment. Yes.
Oh, I apologize.
Took us a moment to say, but it doesn't look like 46,000 in here. Yeah. Well, we figured
I didn't check to see if that the order was the same as what was listed.
Yeah.
Point noted for the future.
All right, comments or questions? Dan.
Is the township going to review this? Their traffic engineer is going to review McMahon's the study, the 45,000.
Yes, there will be submittals, and they'll have suggestions and conversations.
Okay. After they have their suggestions, are they going to rebid, bill us for the suggestions after they come up with that, with their plan? Will they, McMahon, then bill us again for when they revise the plans?
It's a possibility, although the 46,000, if you look at what is detailed, there is some give and take or redesign, redrawing to comply with both PennDOT and as well as the traffic manager.
So this $45,000 is just for the first submittal?
I wouldn't say it's just for the first submittal. No,
right.
I mean, if you go to page 8 of 10 in the larger one, it tells you, it lays out the fee. For HOP roadway plans, then the traffic signal, you can see after the HOP that the amounts are much smaller. But then again, you have the exclusions.
I just don't want this going back and forth, because as you know, every time it goes back and forth, that people are making more money. I just want to make sure.
Mr. Ropsky, I certainly understand what you're saying. And, as we work with McMahon, and there are suggestions that come in or requirements. I mean, sometimes they're requirements. We just recently had a meeting where PICO was in the room because we're going to have to move some, at least 4 poles. We couldn't, Verizon didn't show up, so we had to bring them in on a conference call. So there's going to be more costs that are associated with this work as we go down the line, as the scope becomes more defined.
Does PennDOT reviews these plans by McMahon?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does PennDOT's suggestions and recommendations trump the townships?
I would like to think that there would be no conflict or where one would not be in compliance with the other. If something like that came up and we were to find out about it, we would certainly report back. But I've been on a number of construction jobs, and that's never happened as far as being opposed to each other. Sometimes one of the groups will want more done than the other group.
But the regulations are, developed by, or the proposals developed by McMahon are in compliance with all the documented regulations from all parties.
Correct.
So that's not that it can't happen, but it shouldn't happen. It's not likely to happen.
I know in some instances that the state's requirements on curbing and shoulders are a little bit weaker than the townships.
They may not be
right.
as stringent. Yes, I would agree with you on some of those. They also can make suggestions about how turning lanes or how wide a road has to be made during the construction process. We are monitoring this and
all right. Well,
involved.
Who's going to go to bat for us to make sure that we get the cheapest, the least amount of work done?
Well,
is it McMahon or is it the township? Is it PennDOT?
Well, sometimes it's certainly we hire McMahon, but they want to make sure that we're compliant with the agencies that control the roads. However, Mr. Lester and I have both set up meetings and been involved with them and push back at times, ask questions. Do we really need to do this if it's temporary? So we advocate for the school district.
And are we also paying the township's traffic engineer to review these plans?
Most likely we will end up covering the cost of that. But I think we all know that that's standard operating procedure for development of any kind. If we touch it, whether we're a developer or a school district, we may have to fix it.
Okay, let's talk about this next week at the liaison meeting. All right, thank you.
All right.
I have a question in regards to the not to exceed. First is, would that actually need to be then included in the contract as written, or is it just going to be a board motion? The second question actually relates to the not to exceed. If both of the in particular the EWAs are listed as a flat fee, has it been typical that these have come back where it's ballooned to a point where you need the not to exceed?
Yes. I would not be asking for extra money every time the board approves something, approves a motion or expenditure, we set up a purchase order for that amount. And what happens is if there's a time and material charge of a small amount, let's just say $300 on something as much as $44,000, then we have to end up closing out the purchase order, bringing something back to the board for a nominal amount. Obviously, if we exceed my guesstimate of 10 to 15% for time and material, I'll be back here talking about it again, or someone will.
I just needed some clarification. What have we paid McMahon so far? And, next week would be good. I mean,
Okay.
we've had motions in the past.
Yes, we have had a couple. The 46,000 is the biggest one so far related to this. We also had a motion for McMahon when we were looking at Field of Dreams, for example, looking at traffic studies there. So
Right.
we've had several dealings with McMahon over the last year.
So, yeah, we know that there's going to be significant road improvements at Sandy Run Middle School, and part of it is justified by the difference in the traffic, is that all of the parent vehicles will be exiting and coming in from Twining, so that will create, we want to avoid...
It has changed.
Yeah, so it has changed, so I can see the need for some of the timing of the lights, the widening, the right lane into the school.
Correct.
Then there's other improvements in terms of the students, walkers getting across the street with that island. It's going to be widened, and therefore you need to widen probably the road there. And there's
Actually, that one is, you widen the island so that you don't have to widen the road, and it shortens the walk time, and therefore shortens the cycle time on the light.
Right, and a lot of painting, I guess, of the
Yes.
of the street. And
Although,
walking.
Mr. Sirota, we did discuss that
Yeah.
again at...
I have no doubt all of these things will come up again and again and again, because so far they've been coming up again and again and again.
I know, but you didn't happen to be at that particular meeting, but I was, and I'm like, okay. So, yes. And on Monday night, I'll be able to tell you exactly what we've paid to McMahon so far. I just want to remind everybody, when we built the high school, we had, there was a lot of changes back and forth with McMahon. And as a matter of fact, one of the last things that we did for the high school was put in the left turning arrow onto Spark from Susquehanna. Well, that was still a punch list item. So it was, and we worked with McMahon and the township to get that done at a cost of about $10,000, but it needed to be done.
The fee schedule in the $46,000 document has 5 phases. What phase are we not in phase 1 yet, or where
No,
are we with this particular document?
We are we're well into phase beyond phase 1. I'd have to go back and look at the documents that I have.
Okay. All right, and so there is $4,000 in here for time and materials for meetings and such. That's the part that you're concerned is not
Adequate.
enough. Okay. All right. Any other
Because
comments?
whenever somebody requests a meeting, we need to have it. And
Yep. And there's a lot of parties involved.
Exactly.
Titia.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that a little bit more. Can you explain that to the people who are not so involved in this process, what this means in practice? This means if you need additional meetings, then a representative from the company needs to be in attendance, and that those are the hours we're going to
Yes.
be paying for?
And it may, you'll notice on the last page, they have their standard provisions for professional services. They do a great job of trying to keep consistent with the same individuals working on the projects. There's not any need to bring somebody up to speed, but sometimes they need a couple of individuals to do the drawing and somebody who really can lead the conversation.
So do you believe that 10% is a pretty reasonable from your experience?
Let me put it this way, we may go over that, but it causes us to pause and look at it and perhaps ask more questions with McMahon and let them know that we've, have spent an additional 10%. So I don't like to ask the board or to have it not to exceed more than 10 or 15% more than what the amount of the contract is.
Yeah, still, I like what Robert said. It's like, you know, if we give them an extra, up to an extra $10,000, they're gonna go and grab, I mean, they're gonna
We're-
like, bill that.
We're not going to sign a contract with them or anything else. We're doing the extra 10% for internal purposes.
Okay. So we'll still be at 46,000.
You are quite correct.
And if they do need more money, would they need to come to the board here and ask for permission?
More than the
Yes.
additional 10%,
Yes.
yes, I would have to bring, or the CFO will bring it back to you and say, we have exceeded the amount that the board approved on this particular phase, on this particular project, or on this particular EWA. And then you would have to approve it.
Okay. Well, is the CFO going to be the one who's going to be looking at these bills as they come in to make sure?
I certainly always have, yes.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
so.
All right.
Mr. Ropsky, you've not been through a project with me before, but I think if you speak to other folks that I have been in projects with, we will be scrutinizing every bill that comes through. I also anticipate is before we get too much further into the project, we will start keeping and presenting monthly a balance sheet of how much money we've devoted towards the project. So that way the board, the community has full transparency about what has been spent towards the construction of the new Sandy Run and all facets of it.
I'll also say that regarding what sounds like the concern here, so far in my experience, and I haven't been in every meeting, but I've been in a lot of them, McMahon isn't the one driving the
No.
additional time and materials. So they're not the one who's driving those additional dollars.
It's PennDOT and perhaps the township. But we actually have a listing every month of the checks that go out of the bond fund at this point in time that is published separately. So you know what, when we pay the architects or McMahon or any of the other consultants Advantage, that's included under the bond fund expenditures.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll move this forward with Brenda's revised numbers. Yes, Dan? Yes, okay. On to transportation, Versatrans transportation software.
At last month's meeting, Mr. Robbins brought forward pricing on 3 different software. This is the contract, and currently I'm talking with the solicitor about it, ironing out some fine points and fine tune, and which will be done by tomorrow. There's just a couple of minor points that need to be I's dotted, T's crossed during a conference call tomorrow. It will be brought to you Monday night for approval. The amount, notice it does say a 3-year contract. As you may recall, the last time, I believe the year, and we'll change the motion to show year 1, year 2, and year 3. It's about $32,000, I believe $500, if I recall correctly, for the first year, and the subsequent years are about $13,000 apiece.
Okay, comments or questions?
Will Mr. Robbins make a thorough report on the advantages of having this at our legislative meeting so the public would know what's going on here?
He went into that at last month's
Yeah,
operations.
I know, but at the legislative meeting, I think it would be important.
So I think one of the things that I'm happy to do is make that part of my superintendent's report, and we can add a 1-page document about the advantages of the transportation software. I'm also going to make it part of my next Monday morning message, especially because we had so many challenges at the beginning of this school year with transportation. I want to start that conversation with everyone now. The other thing that we've asked as a side point, but I think an important one, over the summer, once the bus routes get released, is for Mr. Robbins to set up some time in an evening where people can actually come and ask him and his team questions so that those questions get answered well in advance of the first day of school.
The other piece to mention in there, as I understand it, is the new software will, I don't know if we'll use it right off the bat, but has a parent interface And so we'll need to hear more about how that will be rolled out and training and all that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it will sync nicely with our new student information management system, Infinite Campus. So it will allow, from my vantage point, it will allow parents, guardians, families to have a really nice glimpse into the transportation world.
Other comments or questions? Yep, Robert?
This is a small question. I was not wanting to ask it, but on the last month's operation agenda, there's a $180 difference in year 3. Do you happen to know why?
I don't right off.
That's fine.
But, wait, just a second.
Yeah, so at last month's operations meeting, it was 13,995, and then in this current contract, it's at 14,125. That's the only difference.
You know, I think there was a slight increase. That was one of the things that I was going back and forth with them, and I'll ask tomorrow morning to confirm that.
Okay, so we'll move this forward? Yes. All right, we are up to community input. Anyone would like to, no? No? All right. Okay, you know the drill.
I did have a question, so I might as well unmute. So, I don't think
Mrs. Vitello, can you put the mic on?
you can't hear me. Okay.
We can hear you, but everyone else.
Right. I don't hear that often, of course. Ginny Vitella Ambler. And my one quick question, all this money we are talking about, is this in addition to our 70/75 million, or is this kind of all part of that? That's all.
The expenditures tonight for the air conditioners. Oh, the roads. I'm so sorry. Advantage. Yes, that's all part of the $70 million. It's part of the Sandy Run Middle School project. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's McMahon, that's Advantage. What else is on there? Yeah, that's Advantage. Yeah, it's really just those two, right?
It's only those
yeah.
two tonight. The others relate to the window project.
Yeah. Oops. Our next meeting is April 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m. right here in the Cardinal Room. We will take about 5 minutes to reset for the Finance Committee meeting, and we are adjourned. The cameras will continue to roll while we switch it up.